So now what does Aristotle do with this conception of substance, and why is it such an important thing for him? Well, he rejects Plato's theory of forms as an account of reality. You recall that for Plato, the fundamental realities of things are these patterns, these structures that can only be understood through the intellect, that he calls forms. Those are eternal realities. And the things that we, or tangible things that we ordinarily take as real, this body, this person, this table, this pencil, right? Those things are, they're like images, right? They're sort of like images in a mirror. For Plato, he uses that metaphor of the image. They're not fully real for him. Aristotle rejects this, and Aristotle says the fundamental sorts of realities are the things that are really fundamentally tangible, the things that we take as ordinary objects. That's what's real, and that's what Aristotle calls the substance. Now, what does this notion of substance do for Aristotle? Well, remember the pre-Socratic issue, the pre-Socratic question that we called the one-many problem, which had several different aspects to it. How do we account for a source of things, you know, one source for many things, of course, but also more generally, how do we account for, and importantly, how do we account for unity through change? Okay, when something changes, let's say Socrates, you know, he is young at one time, learns things that he grows up, learns things that he didn't know before, gets old, is at home sometimes, in the agora at other times, in court at another time. He undergoes all of these different changes, but through it all he's Socrates. How to account for this unity, this identity through change? We saw that Heraclitus' response to that was that you can't. There is no actual identity through change. Everything is always changing all the time in every respect. Parmenides' response to that was, there can't be any change. Okay? All there is identity. Rather unsatisfactory responses to giving an account for this. So Aristotle's notion of substance is what allows him to do this. Okay? So a substance is something that can remain the same while it has different sorts of qualities. It changes in terms of quality or quantity or other sorts of aspects. Okay? So, and we see this in the way that these other types of categories for Aristotle, things like quality, quantity, position, and so on and so forth, those things depend upon the substances. For example, okay, this table is brown, right? So the brown would be what in the category of quality for Aristotle. So now the table is not the only brown thing, but brown in Aristotle's view is a quality that exists only in substances, only in the particular color of this particular table is something that's in this table, and it can't exist without the table. And that's why, for example, that's why we say things like, the table is brown. But we don't say, oh my, look, you know, this little patch of brownness is somewhat tabley, isn't it? That's why we could say, we're tired of this brown, of this particular table. I think I will refinish it and stain it an entirely different color than it is now. We could eliminate the color and retain the table. We couldn't, on the other hand, do the reverse and say, well, you know, I really like this brown here, this particular brown here of this particular table, but I don't like the table. I think I will keep the brown and just eliminate the table and get something else out of it instead. That doesn't work. So the brown is somehow dependent upon the existence of the substance in order for it to exist. There is a relationship of dependency there. So there's something about the substance that doesn't change while other things do change. So the concept of substance is what Aristotle uses to account for identity through change. What is it that doesn't change? Well, this is something that Aristotle calls substantial form, or something that is called essence. There's an essence of the thing. What is the essence of the thing? Well, that's a little bit more complicated question. We'll think about that more when we get to Aristotle's metaphysics. But his idea is, a substance, as long as it exists, remains one and the same identical thing while undergoing changes. Something about it makes it the thing that it is, despite the many changes that it undergoes. So Socrates, during his entire life, is still Socrates. He may change in many different ways. He's young, he grows old, he doesn't know anything, he learns philosophy and he knows something. He's not musical, we give him some music lessons, and then we have musical Socrates, one of Aristotle's favorite examples. He's ugly, we give him some plastic surgery and Botox treatments, and he becomes beautiful Socrates. Through all of those changes, he's still Socrates. So substance for Aristotle is the fundamental sort of reality, and it's also his device for accounting for the identity of things through change.